Good afternoon. My name is Craig Rucker, and I serve as the Executive Director of the Washington, D.C.-based Committee for a Constructive Tomorrow, or CFACT. On behalf of Senator Inhofe and our invited speakers, I welcome you to our press briefing. Senator Inhofe would like to be with us here today, but could not attend in person. So he has sent us a video we'll play in just a moment with an important message that will shed important light on the position of the U.S. Senate with regard to these climate talks. From the perspective of Senator Inhofe and of our colleagues here on our panel, we are neither anxious nor saddened by the imminent death of the Kyoto Protocol. It is our hope at this 17th gathering of the Conference of the Parties, this will mark the end of a painful, ill-conceived journey in global diplomacy. The Kyoto Protocol and the process which advanced it was loaded with shortcomings that were glaringly obvious right from its inception. Perhaps its most notable deficiency, at least to those of us the media insists on calling climate skeptics, or much worse, we prefer, by the way, being called climate realists, make note of that. Its most notable deficiency was its misuse and downright hostility to employing the scientific method. The scientific method, of course, allows a postulated theory to undergo rigorous scrutiny to see if it can withstand the rigors of cross-examination. It places a theory in front of a firing squad. If left standing, it survives to live another day. From the onset of the Kyoto process, however, the rigorous testing of the scientific process was never employed. Instead of allowing the scientific community to take shots at the global warming theory, a small, insulated cadre of scientists and activists involved with the IPCC and Conference of the Parties saw fit to aim their guns squarely at the scientists challenging the global warming hypothesis. It's as if the firing squad was assembled to point their guns outward toward the skeptics instead of inward at the theory. As has been made abundantly clear by the ClimateGate 1 and 2.0 emails, scientists at the top echelon of the IPCC have manipulated research, suppressed data, ridiculed dissenting scientists, and even applied pressure to respected peer-reviewed journals in an attempt to silence debate and blacklist those who are not on board the global warming bandwagon. This shameful practice further soiled the memory of Kyoto's already sad legacy. An even more disturbing facet of the Kyoto Protocol is the manner in which it contributed to the economic turmoil we are experiencing today. As nations sought to rein in their carbon emissions by scaling back their use of fossil fuels, energy prices began to rise and people began to suffer. Perhaps no one suffered more than those in the developing world, especially those in Africa, where only 5% of those in sub-Saharan Africa have access to affordable electricity. Before I came to this conference, in fact, I was in Uganda on CFACT humanitarian work, and I witnessed protests over power outages firsthand that were disrupting residents in Kampala. At this point, I'd like to show the video that Senator Inhofe has sent to us.
Hi, I'm Senator Jim Inhofe, a Republican senator from Oklahoma. Today I'm happy to bring you the good news about the complete collapse of the global warming movement and the failure of the Kyoto process as world leaders meet for the United Nations Global Warming Conference in Durban, South Africa. For the past decade, I've been the leader in the United States Senate standing up against global warming alarmism and cap and trade, which would have been the largest tax increase in the history of America. This victory is especially important today as families in America and around the world continue to face really tough economic times, and tossing out any remote possibility of a UN global warming treaty is one of the most important things we can do for the economy. I'm making this announcement from Washington, D.C., where I'm confident that the only person left talking about global warming is me. The message from Washington to the UN delegates in South Africa is this week could not be any clearer. You are being ignored, and you are being ignored by your biggest allies in the United States. That's President Obama in the Democratic leadership in the Senate. And there's a good reason for this. Just 2 years ago, President Obama, along with members of his administration, several members of the congressional Democratic leadership, and Al Gore traveled to Copenhagen to tell the world that the United States was ready to join the United Nations efforts in implementing the costly global warming regulations through cap and trade legislation. Now, knowing this was nothing but a lie, I made the trip to Copenhagen as a one-man truth squad to inform the 191 countries in attendance that there was no way the United States would ever pass global warming cap and trade. Now, they didn't like it, but I was right and they were wrong. Now, 2 years later, my colleagues are nowhere to be found at the latest conference. Nevertheless, President Obama and his allies in the far-left environmental movement are working under the radar to impose global warming restrictions in the United States through regulations by the Environmental Protection Agency. As you'll remember this, even Lisa Jackson, Obama's EPA administrator, has admitted publicly that U.S. action alone would not reduce world CO2 emissions. Now that the UN global warming movement has completely collapsed, why is President Obama still determined to move forward with costly global warming regulations that will destroy our economy while providing no meaningful environmental benefits? To make matters worse, President Obama is doing this even though the entire basis of these global warming regulations rests on the science of the now discredited United Nations IPCC. And of course, the IPCC has refused to reform its process, and I can only assume that this is because doing so would undermine those in the Obama administration who called the IPCC the gold standard of climate science. So even though we've had many victories, our fight isn't over. Today we're working to stop President Obama from achieving quietly through regulation what he could not achieve through legislation. I had originally hoped to join the party in Durban with my good friends and allies from CFACT. I understand that Craig Rucker, the Lord Monckton, I remember Lord Monckton well when he was here in Washington, and my former communications director, the very quiet and demure Marc Morano, are on the ground in Durban to tell whatever press is actually covering the UN conference the real story. I'm particularly pleased that Marc Morano will be releasing his A to Z climate reality check report. This report shows that on virtually every claim from A to Z, the promoters of man-made climate fears are failing and the global warming movement is suffering a scientific death of 1,000 cuts. It categorizes and indexes the full range of climate developments. It includes key facts, peer-reviewed studies, and the latest data in developments with links for further reading on an exhaustive range of man-made global warming claims. Good work, Mark. But let's also remember that even though cap and trade legislation is gone, done, dead, forever, President Obama is going full force in his efforts to pass these destructive regulations through the EPA. And even if we defeat Obama in the 2012 elections, which I sure hope we do for the sake of my 20 kids and grandkids, they're still out there. MoveOn.org, George Soros, Michael Moore, and the Hollywood elites are not going to give up. And they've got the press and unlimited resources on their side. So it's not over yet. Let me end by thanking my friends from CFACT for organizing this press conference today. We have worked closely together to expose this costly agenda for years. You should know that global warming skeptics everywhere wish we could be with you celebrating the final nail in the coffin on location in South Africa. And tell Al Gore hello for me.
Thank you, Senator Inhofe, for at least addressing us by video. I wish you could have been here. I will begin. I used to be a Senate staffer of the Environment and Public Works Committee. Got to do a lot of the global warming stuff. I was the author of the 255-page report of the then 700 internationally dissenting scientists on man-made global warming. We've since updated to more than 1,000, and it includes many UN IPCC scientists and Nobel Prize winners as well. Some news first from Washington. John Huntsman, every global warming activist's favorite Republican, has bailed. Climate Progress has a whole report on John Huntsman. The media is all over it. He is now saying the ClimateGate emails, the ClimateGate 2.0 emails to be specific, have made him reassess the science. He is now questioning the science. The only Republican you had hope for has bailed on you. So that's the good cherry news I bring you.
He also said the University of East Anglia is in Scotland.
What a horrible mistake for him to make. Right, he knows what he's talking about when it comes, because he referred to the...
Is the University of East Anglia in Scotland?
No, it's not.
Thank you.
We'll have time for questions tomorrow.
Regenda Pachari, I want to give you a quick thanks on this. We could not ask, as global warming skeptics, for anyone, for anything better than Regenda Pachari to stay on as the head of the IPCC. We wish him the longest thing. In terms of my report, and I'd love for journalists to ask this, we go from everything from A to Z in this report. And it's a 1.0 edition of the report. It will be continually added to. We go from the Antarctic to the Arctic, global temperatures, Mount Kilimanjaro, sea level, global cholera, malaria, polar bears, on almost every single issue that there were claims made, say beginning in 2006 and 7. Not only is global warming failing, the predictions failing to come true, they have egg on your face. Sea level, NASA's second has been dropping. According to the European Space Agency, there's been no rise or very slight rise since 2004 when the Envirosat space satellite went up to measure sea level. Global temperatures, the media always makes fools of themselves, tied for the hottest year. If you look at the facts, these are differences between hundreds of a degree Fahrenheit that even NASA's James Hansen say make no practical difference. It's a fancy way of saying temperatures have leveled off. So we look forward to the Q&A for you to talk about the A to Z report, and I look forward to the United Nations continuing to be ignored, and when it is paid attention to, it's pretty much laughed at. The IPCC has shown itself to be a political organization masking as a science body. So we look forward to it. You'll have a summary for policymakers, if you will, of the A to Z report here. The full report is on the website.